I had gained 50 pounds during COVID, was drinking a lot more. There were other issues like pre-diabetic and high cholesterol and things like this that for a 28-year-old guy, like that's not normal.
Eating the rainbow will always be better than taking multivitamins and taking all those multivitamin stacks.
It's so hard. It's so hard to stay perfect on it. Perfection isn't like the goal. It's just progress and mindfulness. I think I love what you brought up about mindfulness earlier.
If you really need help, magnesium citrate for bowel movement, glycinate for mood and muscle recovery.
Welcome back to the Spiral Up Health podcast with your host, Travis Johnson and Ung. Ung, how are you doing today, man?
Doing good. We have a lot to unpack today.
The Spiral Up Health podcast is all about redefining wellness, longevity, future of health in this AI world that we're living in. Ung and I met on Health Tech Nerds and realized that there's not a lot of good content for people like us who've gone through some health journeys and have learned a lot of lessons. And we're here to share our lessons that have made a real difference in our life. And today, we're going to be unpacking nutrition. Would you give a quick review of like what we covered last week, what our four pillars are, and then how we define nutrition on the cast?
Yeah, on our very first episode, we established these four pillars. These four pillars were nutrition, body, brain, and connection. When we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about everything that we're putting into our body. So it would be our diet, our supplementation, and anything that's we're surrounding ourselves with that's nourishing our body and soul, basically.
Yeah, we hear this word nutrition and we're just tempted to think fruit and vegetables, right? But we really wanted to redefine what does it mean to nourish your body? What do we mean when we say nutrition? And like Ung said, it's literally everything that we expose or put into our body. These become the building blocks for everything that we are. Literally, our body is made of what we eat. We are what we eat or anything that we kind of come in contact with, water and environmental toxins, things like this. Nutrition is all focused on these external things that we consume, right?
Yeah, exactly. But for today, I think we're going to be touching more on what we eat and what we put into our body. So we'll be covering more on diet and supplementation, but the topics that we're going to cover are going to be applicable for all body types, gender, and lifestyle. These are the basic building blocks of nutrition and supplementation. So you can apply it into any lifestyle you want. It's a universal truth, a more basic truth.
Yeah, I love that. There's these laws in reality that, what we eat, what we, consume, it affects our bodies. We can't escape this. And so we're just, a big part of why we're here even is we had to learn these lessons maybe the hard way. And I know each of us have stories that led us to where we're at today around learning some of these things, learning some of these rules that actually made a difference in our lives. Because every day, I don't know about you, but I see on my feed just influencers posting things, that seem impossible to do, perfect diets, this and that. And it's like, what actually makes a difference? What actually matters? What do I actually need to know and do that will make a difference in my life? And so I know we wanted to start off about just like our story, telling about our relationship with food and nutrition and kind of unpacking what made a difference for each of us. So maybe do you want to start along that line?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick that off. Just to give a little bit more context, I grew up in Burma. So I grew up with a lot of whole food, natural food, but at the same time, no one really taught me what's good food and bad food. Everything that's like put in front of you is the food that you eat. In terms of the palate, like I grew up in the time where there was still a lot of international embargo on Myanmar, so we don't. I didn't grow up with a variety of palate. Only in my late teens that I started to get to experience other type of food like like that's outside of Asia, like Mexican or European food. So my worldview starting off was really small in terms of diet, and I was not an athletic guy. So growing up, I'm the nerdy type, so I was stick thin. And then like only when I started proactively learning about sports and nutrition, that's when I start and global culture in a broader context, that's when I start to learn and appreciate about food and nutrition and eating what's right. And right now in my journey, I do jujitsu, which is a main part of my life. I'm still a blue belt, but like for me, nutrition right now means, fueling your body, eating right, so that I'm not sluggish, I'm not having energy dumps. At the same time, having a well-balanced diet. And
Yeah.
how about you, Travis?
Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I've experienced, I think I'm still on my journey, but I've learned a lot. I grew up in the Midwest. We used to call my mom the casserole queen. Like every dinner was a big old cheesy potato casserole or something like that. Beans with bacon, but we
Nice.
we still always had vegetables. But yeah, so we grew up eating, fairly balanced diet, so we thought. And as I became a bachelor after college, I think my diet was just like, oatmeal, eggs, toast, like just carbs mostly with some protein. And I was living on that. And so my relationship with food has changed over the years. And I think we're often find ourselves in a place where we think we're doing it all right. This is like our ego. We just kind of it forms around what's
Yeah.
normal to us. And it was only once I started experiencing problems in my health in other ways, I realized that actually what I was eating was causing that damage. One, I
Mm,
had gained 50 pounds during COVID, was drinking a lot more, but also just like, yeah, there were other issues like pre-diabetic and high cholesterol and things like this that for a 28-year-old guy, like that's not normal. Well, at
yeah.
least I didn't think it was, and it is more than we might realize now. So it got real for me when I realized that there were numbers out of whack in my health and that food was influencing it. And so that began a journey of just actually understanding what am I putting into my body? What is a calorie? What's a macro? Like how do I count protein? Like it's overwhelming. It's a lot to learn. What all these
It's a
ingredients, all
lot.
these foods. So and I'm just was always the undisciplined guy. I'm like, there's no way I'll take a supplement every day. There's no way I'll stick to a diet. Like I'm just too impulsive. I'm too rambunctious. I won't tell you all the juicy details, but like, I figured it out with a lot of help, with a lot of support, with a lot of community, lost 50 pounds, got a lot of my indicators in place, and like it's possible. And food was a big part of that story, not all of it, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in my journey with food so far.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Like, it's like, I know if you, on a broader context, there's a lot of contrast. It doesn't seem like we don't have an overlap in terms of culture, but, at the end of the day, food is culture too. And that's what
Mm.
makes us.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I think you're right. It's hard to break that, right? But
Yeah.
it's an iterative process, and little by little over time, for sure.
All right, let's get into the more juicy details about the pillars of the nutrition that we want to talk about. And I want to kick it off with the macronutrients, which are carbohydrate, protein, and fat. So, do you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. You're the expert here, so you fill in the gaps. The three main macronutrients are carbs, proteins, and fats, like you said. We'll go in reverse order. So fats, these are the slowest digesting, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
These are found in your foods like avocados or saturated fats, unsaturated fats, oils, these types of things are all very fatty foods. Contrary to popular belief, is actually good for you in many ways for your hormone production and various things. And so fat, unlike I think where I grew up, like avoid all fats, it'll make you fat. It's kind of misleading. Fats are good, and some fats are obviously much better than others. Protein, as we all know, is your meats. It's in a lot of different foods, but it's probably one of the hardest ones to get, like without conscious effort. And it's also probably the more expensive of them, and in terms of that quantity and
Exactly.
quality of it. Yeah, and there's also like amino acids that go into protein that are important to understand that like
Those are the
you're getting a
building
full
blocks of
profile.
of life. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and then carbs. Yeah, we know these too well. I think I went from a like a recovering alcoholic to now a recovering carbaholic. These are the easiest to get in society, but these are things like your breads. Any sort of sugar is a carb. Any sort of glucose. There's carbs in your food. But And another thing that's really important about carbs too is their glycemic index of the food itself, right? Like eating pure sugar, sweet tarts is different than your apple. They might both have the same grams of carbs, but the one has a lower glycemic index because the apple has fiber attached to it. So there's all sorts of like
Sure.
games to play underneath the umbrella of carbs. But these are some of the categories of carbs. What did I leave out? What did I miss in those explanations?
So you covered a lot, but I'm gonna give a little bit more details that I want to fill in. In terms of, let's start with what you started off, fat. Yeah, we need fat, like in terms of both I mean, we can't cook without our cooking oil, right? We need these olive oil, vegetable oils to actually cook stuff. So we shouldn't be shying away from fat or shying away from any of the three things that we talked about. It's all about moderation, how much we eat and how we dense our food is. Going back to fat, it's help with like you said, hormones and also help with brain health and vitamin
Mm,
absorption. Some of the vitamins that we take are fat soluble, so we need those
mm,
fat so that it get absorbed by the body. So for terms of source of fat, we should be aiming for like olive oil, vegetable oils, avocados, nuts, and fatty fish. We should be
mm,
prioritizing like unsaturated fat versus trans fat. We can talk about that more in following episodes. And in terms of protein, yes, it's so hard, especially if you're on a vegan diet. Uh, but it's also, like you said, Travis, it's a building block. You need the amino acids. We need that to maintain muscle and satiety. We need that protein to build and repair our tissues and support an immune system. We need to be balancing out with vegetables and whatnot, but the protein we should be the general consensus is we should be aiming for 1.6 to 2.2 gram per kilogram per day, especially if you're active and or over 40. So that's the aim. But yeah, actually another fun fact about growing up was in the Burmese culture is like more about eating rice and carbs to feel that satiety and less about the protein. That's something that I had to unpack, that I had to unlearn and eat more protein rich food in my own
mm,
personal journey. And to wrap it up, carbs. You need carbs. Like we shouldn't be shying away from carbs. And it's also the main source of energy for your body. That's how your body is fueled basically, and especially for your brain. Your brain needs a lot of energy, carbohydrate, just for your daily process, your daily thinking. You know, without the brain, we won't be alive, and that helps regulate the whole nervous system, our both autonomous and like parasympathetic nervous system. That is coming down from
mm,
the brain. So yeah,
mm,
in terms of what kind of carbs we should be eating for fruits, veggies, whole grain, legumes, rice. Some people say rice is not good, but like for someone coming from the rice first, which I would say don't shy away from rice. And above all
mm.
else, we should be avoiding the ultra processed, the ultra high fructose, sugary carbs. That's where the danger is, instead of shying away from the whole carbohydrate in general.
Absolutely. What diet is all protein? The carnivore diet, right? What diet is like all fats? The keto diet, right? The absence of carbs, right? It's the keto diet, right? Like, are there any other diets that come to mind that listeners might recognize when it comes to these three categories of carbs, proteins, and fats?
I can't think of one right now, but the main one is like the keto diet and the caloric restriction. That's where people are fixated.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Well, do you want to kind of kick us off? What are micronutrients? Like what difference have those made for you and how do we define that and why do they matter?
So you have the macros, which is the bigger blocks, but like for cellular maintenance, like you need the micronutrients. They're required in like smaller amounts. They're critical for your energy, your immunity, and repair. The key micronutrients are like, for example, vitamin D. That's essential for bone and immune health.
Hmm.
We'll unpack more in the supplement, but like just to touch base, is what people call the sunshine vitamins. And that's really, really important for your bone health. And your vitamin Bs, that's essential for energy metabolism. And magnesium helps with muscle, nerve functions. Your other minerals like iron, calcium, potassium, and zinc, they're all essential for different parts of the systems. So what have you
Yeah.
been doing for your micronutrients, Travis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's quickly a lot of dissenting opinions around micronutrients and what supplements should you take and what's your supplement stack and all this stuff. You can't fix with micronutrients like exogenous supplements what you're breaking with a bad just diet, right? And so our first core principle is just eat whole foods most of the time. You're probably going to be checking a lot of boxes intrinsically in that way. So what do we mean by whole foods? It just means like things that humans have eaten the last 1,000 years, right? Not things that were invented in the last five. So, fruits and vegetables that aren't genetically modified, that are organic. I know they cost more, but trust me, it makes a difference. Not in a week, but like in 3 years, you're putting natural things in your body that contain the nature, natural version, the right balance of ingredients and micronutrients, right? So yeah, I think that's really important. And then from there, if you're doing, functional medicine and you're finding issues in your blood markers or various things, sure, like support and, support the gaps with some supplementation and get things right. But a lot of these, should be coming from your food.
Yeah, one second. There was one thing that you were saying off camera about eating the rainbow. Like if you're eating rainbow from different, like all the different colors, and you're getting different nutrients. I would
Mm,
like to second what Travis is saying. Like eating like these fruits and vegetables that's been like, as a human being, we've been eating for thousands of years. That's how we're getting our basic source. We can't just like replace eating whole food with just taking multivitamin supplements. Like eating whole food, eating better, eating the rainbow will always be better than taking multivitamins and taking all those multivitamin stacks.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, commerce wants you to buy something that will fix something, yeah, that's broken, right? But you will take best care of yourself by eating it from the source. And for example, just to like diverge for a second, I used to work for a company. It was a huge nutraceutical. They had the largest organic food farm in Illinois, and they did a lot of science and research on food, natural ingredients, and to understand like the health benefits of these tiny little ingredients that are just one part of like a blueberry or a beet. And so, for
Huh.
example, they researched and discovered anthocyanins, which are in blueberries, and it's just like this one incredibly powerful antioxidant that it's literally like a very, very dark, deep purple, right? They take that and extract it and concentrate it, and you can get the benefits of that. But you also, if you're just eating blueberries every week, you're getting the steady supply of anthocyanins in your body. Another one that we worked on was called betalains, and this is like what gives beets their red color. It's
Interesting.
super red, like it would literally make it was like you're bleeding if you ate it and it popped the pill in your mouth. It looked like you were a vampire or something. It was a strong scavenger of like free radicals through oxidative stress in your body. So we used it for endurance athletes, and people could run longer and long harder. And like that's just one ingredient, one little pigment from beets. And so there's so much actually that we don't know about some of the benefits of these. And medicine wants us to say, put this one thing in your mouth and you're going to get this one benefit out with a whole long list of side effects that aren't actually side effects, they're just effects. And but with food, it's not that linear, it's not that simple. You put it in and there's so many things that it's doing that we don't even realize that we're still discovering every year. And with AI, hopefully we discover even more. But what we do know is micronutrients are super important for your health, and eating whole foods is probably the best way to get them.
Yeah, eating a well-balanced diet. I know that like it's easier said than done. And sometimes you'll not be in the situation to get these whole foods and your only access to it, whether it's because of financial or geographical limitations. Try to avoid the ultra processed stuff and try to get, I mean, is processed food bad? Not entirely. We're just talking about ultra processed stuff. But like try to get to nature, closer to nature as much as possible. Let's move on to the next one, which is how we eat, the eating patterns and habits. How we eat, also, sorry, how you eat food matters as much as what you eat. What do I mean by that? Instead of like, when we're eating, like we're all running out of time these days. We're always in a rush. And what we end up doing during lunch, we're either chugging our food down our system and just like trying to rush through everything. But like what I want to suggest is we need to be more mindful of our eating habits so that not only when we're mindful, we know how much we're eating, but how much sometimes we're just eating because we're eating. There's like this Japanese saying, like, I'm eating because I feel like eating and not really because I'm really hungry. And that's where mindful eating uh and it comes into play. And that links to satiety awareness because you're mindful. You're not like eating for eating's sake. You're eating with more attention and awareness. Now that when you're full, you'll stop eating and not because you have a full plate. You can always put that away and save it for later.
It's a super good point. The connection between our need for food, our need for nutrition, and our actual eating of food. We say intuitive eating, and I don't like that word because if, again, in that mind of where I'm just eating because I want to eat, if I'm also fully embracing this concept of intuitive eating without discernment, then I'm just going to keep eating more. But there is this place where
Exactly.
at some point, for me, I realized this was one of my first independent breakthroughs in my relationship with food. Like I mentioned, growing up the way I did, Midwest, all this stuff. And being an ectomorph, pretty skinny, I could eat as much as I wanted, right? Wouldn't show it. Couldn't gain muscle, but also wouldn't build fat. And I started training for my first Ironman triathlon or half Ironman
Nice.
actually. And as I was training for that, I actually wasn't really eating that much more. I didn't find that I was like consuming, like, yeah, sure, like a little bit here, like an extra slice of bread or whatever. But, I was eating, 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 training for this thing. I was really focused just on the training. That's what was scaring me the most. But the crazy thing was this: when I stopped training, I started eating profoundly less food. I had actually developed a connection with my energetic expenditure or needs and food. But then I also had this like in like what my body was actually telling me more clearly. I could hear it for the first time saying you need food or you don't. And so when I stopped training, it said you don't need food. You're good. I'm like, "Oh wow." Because before all that training, I would just like you said, the mindless eating, I just would have been eating because it's dinner time. Thou shalt
Yeah.
must eat a big plate of food. And so that's definitely one story that was an early relationship dynamic change with my food.
How we're conditioned to eat at a certain time, like a certain sound. Just because it's 6 p.m., we're supposed to eat, how we're conditioned to eat that way sometimes, not because we're, like you said, we're explicitly hungry or not. Like humans are creatures of habit, and I love about learning about human nature in that way as well. Like that's where the mindfulness comes in. To add to another story regarding nutrition is like before I moved here, like I couldn't gain weight. I was having problem gaining weight. I've been stuck
Really?
at 140 pounds for the longest time. Only when I really started learning about nutrition and be mindful more about what I'm eating. That's when I really started to gain weight. I was able to, especially in the last 4 years, I've been able to gain 10 to 15 pounds of just, not of pure muscle and pure bodybuilding versus gaining fat and just gaining that weight.
Because how did you overcome that? Because I'll be honest, there's a lot of people who probably have that same problem and have just embraced that identity, embraced that state of like, I just can't X, gain weight. lose weight, whatever it is, right? So how did you like see change? How did you figure what was your first feedback loop of like, whoa, I actually can gain muscle? Like how'd you get there? That's important.
So what I really learned was like, I know, but like it's when I really starting being uh hyper focused on what I'm eating and tracking it down to the T. That's when I start to see that, oh, you think if you're just guessing all the time, if you think that you're getting 100 grams of protein a day, but in actual reality, I'm only getting hypothetically 60 grams. Or you think that you're eating below your carbohydrate target, but in actual reality, you're doing it over like 1.5 to 2 times. That's like, so for me, like really counting the calories in the initial phase, that's really helped. That taught me what I'm really, really putting into my body. And
Yeah.
now like when I was doing all the counting stuff, I have to like look up on my fitness pal, like I have to scan barcodes, I have to like more track, like I have to put more conscious effort into it. Nowadays, all you have to do is there's like apps nowadays where you can just point and shoot a photo of what you're eating, and they will do a lot of the guesswork for you. They'll fill in everything. So it's a lot easier to track food nowadays versus when I was doing it. So yeah, learning to wrap it up, learning to really be mindful of and tracking the food that you're eating, that's where the shift became. You think that you're eating enough, actually you might not be, or overeating some of the macronutrients.
Wow, that's really cool, man. I appreciate you sharing that story. And yeah, it just goes to show that like through education and willpower and experimentation, like you're able to figure it out.
Yeah, did you also count calories? Did you also monitor what you're eating when you were doing your trainings?
Yeah, my intense calorie counting came through once. First, just like a diet where I wanted to lose weight, and then second was like a diet where I wanted to perform optimally as a cyclist. This is my drive to become a faster cyclist was primarily where I started taking my diet most seriously. When climbing hills, the watts to kilograms ratio is super important. Extra few pounds will just screw you over. That's why every rider in the Tour de France looks like a skeleton on a bike. So counting calories sucks though, man. It's so hard. It's like,
It
man, I
still
have to
is.
think about this. And then you like all these meals and you go out to eat and it's like, what the heck is even on this plate? And how do I can't there's no meal in my app for this. Like how do I count this? Right. And like it's mental gymnastics math every meal 3 times a day. And so that kind of leads to just being more streamlined in your meals, right? So you're right. I think the advent of AI and some of these technologies are gonna make it easier so we have less excuses, but my goal was I had a caloric number I wanted to hit, and I had a macro profile like 30% carbs or 20% carbs, like 40% fats and 40% protein or whatever the math is. That's 120%. But I had a profile, and then with that, I said, Trav, even if you fail, that's okay. My only commitment to myself was just count my calories every day because I knew that was the hardest part. And I knew that if I
Yeah,
just counted my calories every day, that commitment itself would allow me to have the measurements to then make the behavior,
change.
changing. Yeah, exactly. So I never agreed to perfection because when I tried that, I failed and just gave up immediately. But if I committed to just the process, I'm just going to count every day, every meal for a month or whatever it was, several months, that gave me, I was able to build forward momentum that way. And I learned a lot.
Yeah, I love that part. You were not striving for perfection, but more consistency and just building a new habit out of it. A more mindful habit out of like being mindful of what you're eating, being consistent about the tracking and enjoying the whole process in general.
Yeah.
It still sucks. It still sucks, right? It's like calorie counting still sucks. Uh, but
This is my hack though. Instead of scrolling social media on the toilet, count your calories first and then continue continue to any other scrolling behaviors at work.
That's awesome. Instead of like mindless scrolling on either Instagram or TikTok, Travis has a hack for you. Count in your calories.
Life changing.
To wrap up this section of habit and whatnot. There's one thing that's like have been proven scientifically over and over again. It's the time restricted eating. It might not be for everyone, but I just want to put it out there that like eating in your specific window, it might be from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and give time to digest and then repair. It really helps. It's personally not for me. We've talked about this off camera, but like it's not for us, but it's still worth mentioning because it's a proven fact and it works for a lot of people. This is not a diet hack, but more of a scientific base finding.
Yeah, yeah. I know Peter Attia talks about like with different diets, it's restrict on total calories, restrict on what type of food you eat, or restrict on when you eat, the time. Fasting works for a lot of people, and not everyone can do everything, but find the one that works for you. And definitely know that I know many people who do the fasting diet. I've done some intermittent fasting occasionally. Again, it's hard as an athlete, I think, for me as well, given my workouts, multiple, like working out so many hours a week to stick to that. Maybe that's just an excuse, but needing some flexibility to move my workouts around. I like to, I doing 2, 3 hour bike ride. I have to consume some calories for that. So that one's, less attractive to me.
Yeah, for me, like the intermittent fasting is still tied to Buddha's tradition. So for me, it's still like I still need to break that bond. That it's for me is like every time I think about intermittent fasting, it's about this Buddhist tradition, Buddhist land thing, and like I need to break that linkage first before I can really can benefit from it. For me, it's still too intertwined. That's one of the reason that I don't really try to do intermittent fasting, not because of, I mean, it's also because of my how I exercise and whatnot, but also because of that religious factor. Let's get to the juicy part, supplements, the exogenous supplements. Uh, People love to take supplements these days. But to start it off, I want to say that supplementation is not a fix to a bad diet. This is just a safety net, and it'll never be a substitute for real food. But saying that, there are some. I still take supplements. Travis takes supplements that are like a boost to your existing foundation, and there's a evidence base, and they will help you with your brain health, anti-inflammation, recovery, and sports in general. So Travis, what's your personal take on supplementation?
I could talk about this for hours, having worked in the supplement industry myself. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's hard to know what's true, what's right. First of all, don't buy your supplements off Amazon. Like, I'm just going to
A
say
thousand
that.
percent.
Second of all, not all supplements are bad. Not all supplements are not, approved by the FDA. There's just so much. The pharmaceutical industry has done a lot to you know, to suppress or repress like supplementation industry, right? And there's also, but and fairly, there's a lot of like wild, wild west out there, and maybe some stuff that's snake oil. So also, too, supplements, like not all supplements are the same. If it says vitamin D, it could have like 10,000 IUs, 1,000 IUs, 20,000. You're like, there's things with um, benefits of pharmaceuticals even, but also supplements where it's called the non-linear benefits of food. So it's like at this rate, it does this. At this amount, it does this. And so knowing how much you need of what, there's actually a lot of art and science that goes into a proper supplement stack. So did you know you can actually take too many supplements? Like too many supplements can create a form of like inflammation in your body because it's like putting stress on your
Exactly.
body to process. It's actually bad for you. So like, don't just take the thing that someone says on the internet, like, oh, take this, it'll help you with sleep. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I always recommend work with a functional medicine provider, someone who's actually doing root cause health understanding of like what is going on in your body, where does your body actually need help? What are the proper supplements that will support your journey to health? Getting that kind of care is life changing. And they're also going to be able to give you discounts through like pharmaceutical grade supplement provider platforms such as Fullscript or Emerson or these different places where you can get the best supplements that are out there. Supplements, just like food, go through the quality checks. You can ask any supplement company for a COA, a certificate of analysis, to understand what is actually in that supplement. And for those who are athletes, I used to work with sports performance supplements that if we had not gotten them tested, athletes would have gotten banned from the Olympics. We had to
Yeah,
get
with
very,
doping.
very, very expensive because the thing is the food doesn't just come from somebody's house or some company that has a factory. It's just like a computer. The food industry, supplement industry, a lot of the times they're going out, they're finding a vendor, they're going, oh, we're going to get the organic beet juice from Wisconsin, and then we're going to get this ingredient from this farm here. We're packaging it and we're marketing it and selling it to you. Like, sorry to break your bubble, but the Quaker farmers aren't still like making their oats over on the like the East Coast, right? Like they're it's just a marketing label. So it's just like a computer. It's assembling all these parts and it's being brought to you because they're being manufactured in facilities that also are manufacturing other ingredients. Cross contamination can happen. That's why sometimes your supplements or food will say may contain peanuts or may contain this, right? So, and a lot of times with supplements, especially these ones that are athletic in nature and for the highest performing athletes, sometimes they do get, flagged for things because it's contaminated. I mean, it's like parts per million levels of contamination that would flag an athlete. So, anyways, there's very expensive third-party certifications that are testing supplements at the highest level. If you're making informed choices, you will have a high-quality supplement and get the benefit from it. So, sorry, I could go on and on and on, but like I'm very passionate about supplements. But again, like we said earlier, does not replace a good diet, and you should know what you're taking and why and how much of it. And I also like I'm actually right now in a little bit of a off like cycle. I was taking supplements pretty heavily for
Hmm.
a number of years. I was the type of person that thought, when people said they took supplements every day, I thought they were crazy. Like, okay, take your drugs because you have to, but like, who's actually taking pills every day, right? Like, that's not possible. I'm a creature of chaos, not a creature of habit. Zoom forward a year and a half, and I'm taking one every morning, every night, right? Like morning stack, my evening stack, and doing that pretty regularly because I found it made a difference. It actually made an impact. I wanted to take it because I found it helped. And so right now I'm a little bit of a like down regulation cycle, just like kind of took all cold turkeyed off all of them under a doctor's supervision. I'm gonna do some retesting, kind of see where my body's at, and see kind of where my homeostasis is, we'll say, and probably start getting back on some. So that's a lot, but that's a little bit of my journey with supplements.
I would love to learn more about your supplement stack at the end of this part, but I'm learning a lot. I've heard about all these stuff about the contamination, about all these how things are sourced, but like I'm also learning something new today. In regards to, I just want to add something to what you just said. There's Amazon. No, we should be buying straight from the source, and there was a recent finding around creatine gummies that was published not too long ago, and there was like they're saying they have 5 gram of creatine in their gummy. These like third parties are starting to find that some brands they have zero creatine in their gummies, and they're just selling sugar pills basically. It is really important to know who you're buying from as well. In regards to that, I just want to introduce some very foundational supplements that helps with the body and the function. And I want to start it off with creatine. Uh, Creatine, very safe, extremely well studied. It helps you with recovery, strength, cognition, and energy. And some of the papers that I've read so far is it's also help if you're having like with mental health as well. If you're taking SSRIs for your mental health for some treatment resistant cases, actually creatine helps with the SSRI and whatnot. So I am a big supporter of, bit advocate of people taking creatine. I need to take it after a hard workout or if I have a bad night's sleep so that I'm not sluggish, I'm like recovering well just from the whole ordeal. Do you take creatine, Travis, or what's your take on creatine?
My first exposure to creatine was my older brother in high school using it, drinking tons of water with his peanut butter sandwiches, trying to put on weight, right?
Love it.
And that was kind of like my frozen in time impression of creatine is right. It's like pump, pump, pump your muscles, get that water away. Like first kind of exposure bias. And obviously the research has come so far since then. Like you said, mental health benefits, all these things. One of my favorite recent stats on creatine is, I don't know why I like these stats, but it's like if you get a poor night of sleep, 3 hours or whatever, you can take like 30 grams of creatine and like get your
Exactly.
cognitive function back that day to like undo the damage or something like that. Like, don't don't abuse that. For cycling, I don't take it. I've done some research on it to understand like the net benefits. Earlier, I mentioned the watts per kilogram. There's been a lot of
Mm-hmm.
extensive studies on it, and even if it does increase overall power output, it doesn't necessarily equate to faster overall cycling times because you want like highly efficient, like efficient
Mm.
muscle, something like that. And so I don't take it as much. I will probably start taking it this fall. I'm going to be doing my first high rocks, and I'm kind of okay with putting on some muscle and some more weight. But it's probably the like I feel like it's like the standard supplement in your stack. Everyone should take it for various reasons. I will say I personally do have not found my right creatine. I know there's a couple different versions with different nuanced benefits. And for me, I have found that the couple that I've tried more recently have actually given me some GI distress. And so I'm going to keep experimenting with it, but I feel like yeah, some people are known to have GI issues from it. So, AKA, I just like fart for like a week and a half straight and like for no apparent reason,
Yeah.
which
I
my wife
take
doesn't like.
I take creatine monohydrate. Uh, I have to start it off with 5 gram. Yeah. Initial phase, I was having some like upset stomach, but like now I'm pretty much used to it. And I read along the same line as you did about the sleep thing. Man, it I have done that. I would take 20 after a really bad night's sleep, plus
Did it
compounded
work?
by yeah, I'm like I just don't feel as sluggish. Can feel the mental clarity throughout the day after taking that 25 gram of creatine. So uh, do as you will, but like anything that you take, like everything has to be in moderation. Just an FYI. So it might not work for everyone, but like creatine is safe for both men and women, whether you're in exercising or not. But a creatine should be in your stack.
Yep, I think so.
All right. The next one that I want to talk about is magnesium. So magnesium is really important and in ATP production, which is, it's for mitochondria and energy production. You need it for energy transport. It's needed for sleep, muscle, and food in general. Sorry, mood. I meant mood. So there's like so many different forms of magnesium. The form that I like to take is magnesium glycinate. It's for me, it's for recovery and better mood. I have to warn you though, magnesium citrate is also used as a to help you go number two, and it works extremely well. Like if you go to CVS or Walgreens, they come in these drinkable bottles. So be wary of the type of magnesium that you're taking. The magnesium citrate would really help you if you're having it like having problem going number two. uh, I would not recommend it as the first line of defense for if you don't have bowel movements, but like if you really need help, magnesium citrate for bowel movement, glycinate for mood, and muscle recovery. That's my take on magnesium.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I never realized how much just went into magnesium, right? Like there's so much. There's like seven different types, I think, like glycinate, citrate, like folate. And
There's
knowing
so many different forms.
each of the chloride, malate, taurate, alveronate, I just looked them up. Like there's so many kinds. And it's like I thought I was just taking magnesium, right? And it's like no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. What kind of magnesium, right? Like oh, you took too much of the constipation one. So yeah, that could lead to bad things. I was definitely taking it for like sleep and recovery benefits. Definitely gonna help downregulate at night. Um, I can't remember. Maybe you know some of these. But I feel like one of the craziest things with supplements is there are certain like life debilitating things that are happening to people that sometimes are solved like literally just by like taking some B12 or taking some magnesium. I don't know if any of those come to mind for you, but like I feel like I've heard some of those with magnesium. Like a simple supplement can actually solve some of these like crazily health debilitating issues. Do you know of any of those? We can look them up later if not.
What I've been trained when I was, I mean, going back to being born in Burma, we see a lot of like malnutrition in kids for various amount of reasons, whether it may be from stemming from a parent's lack of general knowledge or just from a financial point of view. You see all these vitamin deficiency, especially in kids. And one of the worst is like if you have a vitamin B1 deficiency, it's called beriberi. There's like dry beriberi, wet beriberi. But the important thing is like vitamin deficiencies will lead into actual diseases. Like B1 would cause cardiovascular and nervous system problems. Like you're gonna have nerve pains and whatnot, and that will also like when you've been binge drinking for long term, what starts to happen is like you get these like pins and needle sensation, numbness in your fingers and your legs because you're not eating right because all you've been doing is
Mm,
drinking the whole day, and that's where you're getting your whole calorie from. And it's not because it's coming from a well-balanced diet. You're gonna see vitamin deficiencies. So so yeah. So yeah, that's why that to link back to what we said earlier, it's all about the well-balanced diet.
mm. Yeah, that's crazy, man. Thanks for sharing that.
And another thing that I want to bring up is omega-3. It's great for especially for your heart and brain. They're anti-inflammatory, and especially if you should be taking omega-3 if you don't have access to or you don't eat a lot of fatty fish. That's where all these omega-3 comes from. And it really helps. Omega-3 like really lubricates your heart.
Lubricates.
Wait,
Yeah.
lubricate your heart. So yeah,
Yeah.
omega-3 should be in your in your stack of supplements. How's your experience
I
in
found
omega-3?
Again, yeah, LDL, HDL. I had high cholesterol, and figuring out that balance. Omega-3 is obviously huge for as Americans. We get much more LDL, which is low density lipoproteins, I think, right? Which is easy to get. It's the high density lipoproteins that are what we really want, and those are your good fats, we'll say. And so omega-3 is huge for that. Another health issue I haven't told you about, and this was actually probably my first big health issue, and I'll probably unpack this more throughout our podcast, but was like acid reflux, GERD, heartburn. I had a lot of
Yeah,
indigestion. It started as early as third grade to the point where in my mid 20s, I went and got an endoscopy. I got it tested out and I had like precancerous cells in my esophagus. And so that's probably been one of my longest lifelong health things that like it's a medical mystery. No one knows like why or how, like what's causing it. And I'll unpack it more later. But because of that, as we know, there's this common thing with fish, omega-3 pills. It's like no fish burps, right? Because you take it
no fish burps.
and dude. And so like, but for the longest time that happened to me, bro. Like I would like burp it and like taste it. It's like, oh, it's like licking the bottom of the ocean floor. It tastes so bad. So I was very, very against omega-3s for that reason alone, which fair, right? I will say I found this brand of omega-3s from Sprout. It's like it's in this big vial. I'll have to go look it up, but it's like it's for kids. It tastes like orange citrus. It's amazing. And
Amazing.
you just like
Sounds
squirt it
amazing.
into a tablespoon. And no burps, no random flavors. Because the other thing too, some people can't take pills, and like a lot of times the omega-3 pills are like a horse pill, right? They're huge.
It's
I
huge.
actually am strangely gifted at swallowing pills. I don't know what it is, but like I can take 10 at a time.
I
Tug.
can't. I'm one of those
So
people who
anyway,
needs to take one pill at a time. It's like I would
oh
puke
really? With like
if I take
food?
every. Yeah.
Bro,
Uh.
I can just, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's like that's the most controversial in terms of format, flavor, size, but definitely one of the most important. And I think it's hard for people to get as naturally in their diet. And it's kind of like, no matter what, I think that's one of the supplements. If you just take it, you're probably going to be better off. You almost can't get too much of it.
Yeah. I know that like if you get omega-3 pills from a really bad manufacturer, that fish burp, I think a lot of people have like PTSD around taking very fishy, smelly omega-3 pills. So good source, good suppliers also matters here.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
And last but not least, vitamin D. It's really important for our immune and bone health, and it's often deficient in the Western worlds where there's a lot of people are not getting enough sunlight. That's why it's called sunshine vitamin, because we get a lot of our vitamin D from direct sun exposure. And if you're like sitting in your house all day, just being in front of a computer, being in a dark room, you're not gonna get the required dose of vitamin D into your body. And that causes a lot of really bone health, like your bones being brittle when you get injured way easier. That's why vitamin D is really important for your immune and bone health. You were saying something along
Yeah.
the line of like how much to take from 1,000 to 2,000 and whatnot. Can you elaborate more on that? We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most interesting ones. Every person, when you're at your next yearly physical, you should be getting your vitamin D levels tested, like hands down. You won't even really have to twist the arm of your primary care provider. Like there's probably 50 other tests I'd say get, but like vitamin D should be table stakes. Get it tested. I don't care if you're an athlete and outside all the time. I can't tell you with how many cyclists I ride with, like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm outside all the time. There can be other things causing you not to have the appropriate vitamin D levels. So just get it tested. Just figure it out. Just see where you're at. And then when it comes to correcting it, like you said earlier, like you were saying earlier, I think the best way to think about it is almost think about it as like a huge solar battery in your body. And a little bit for a long time will slowly trickle up, but sometimes you might need a lot of it over a short time to kind of get that battery up to the like 80% level, right? Because you kind of want to keep it in a certain range. And so again, by testing, you'll know where your vitamin D levels are at and how much you'll need and what kind of protocol you'll need to kind of get to a normal range and that your healthcare provider can work with you through that. But for me, I think I was pretty low coming out to San Diego, living in Chicago, coming from kind of COVID days, stuck in a house. Took vitamin D for probably like 3, 6 months, 6 months, I think, got back into normal ranges and then off cycled. And then now we'll kind of like every 3 months just take like a small amount for, a cycle or two. And I didn't get it, I get tested, quarterly or semi-annually, and just kind of keep it in normal range. So there's
Yeah.
also apps like D-meter or sunlight that can kind of like tell you basically, how much sunlight you're getting and kind of connect the dots back to vitamin D levels and stuff. And those are good, but I have found just test, figure out what you need to do to get it in normal range and work with someone who really cares about you to get there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really recommend vitamin D testing is not on top of mind for a lot of people, and thank you for bringing that up, especially in the Western Hemisphere, Western part of the world. All right, we've covered a lot of stuff today from both personal standpoint and from scientific standpoint, and let's just wrap it up. Any closing remarks that you want to say?
Yeah, it's impossible to do all of this overnight. Our brains are simple in a lot of ways. Sure, you can cold turkey and you might get success, but what's most important in all of this is directionally, number one, aiming towards health, and two, making decisions every week, every day in the right direction in ways that are sustainable. Layer those habits into your habit stack. They become effortless, and then you add a new habit into your habit stack. Food, it's so hard. It's so hard to stay perfect on it. Perfection isn't like the goal. It's just progress and mindfulness. I think I love what you brought up about mindfulness earlier. Figure out what your health goal is. Like for me, it started wanting to be a faster cyclist. Like that was my driver. Like whatever your motivator is, whatever your flow is, if it's vanity, go for it. Like if you just want to look better or lose weight, like whatever you find motivation for, and then, get the help, ask for help, admit that you need to make some changes and figure out like what those changes are. Work with someone like a functional medicine provider or just whatever. Find other people like me and Aung who care about you and want to help you reach your goals. But what's most important, I think, is something that's sustainable. If you're just doing this for a month or a week or a quarter, whatever, like great, but you're just going to rebound because these are systems of maintenance. This is like what you do repeatedly defines who you are. And so you need to find something you can sustain. And so, again, it's an iterative approach towards health. Focus on a goal, find a goal and figure out what changes you need to implement to reach that first milestone and then don't stop, set your next goal after that. So that's probably my thesis
I
on
love it.
nutrition
I
overall.
love it. I love how you encapsulate what we talk about today about consistency over perfection, about iterative approach, and like just having a goal, your guiding North Star for this whole journey. It's a daily process. If we Yeah, we'll fall off the bandwagon every now and then, and it's okay. And it's okay to restart and rethink your journey. It's you do not If you fall off of your diet plan, it's not the end of the world. We can always restart, and you did not lose any momentum. You gain a lot of knowledge, you gain a lot of insight of your own body and your own personal journey, that you're not starting from ground zero again. And what I would like to add on is like try to eat all your macronutrients, your proteins, fats, and
Mm,
carbs. No single one is a bad thing if you're doing it in moderation. It's all about the balance versus totally restricting a macronutrient. And make sure to eat whole food versus ultra processed food so that you're getting all the your vitamins and minerals that require for your bodily functions. If you can just keep all of that, you might not need the extra supplementation like we suggested at the end. But if you still want to do supplements, yeah, just go for the strategic one, the basic one like we mentioned, omega-3, creatine, vitamin D, and magnesium. It's okay to these might not work. These four might not work for you. And for me personally, I only take creatine and magnesium, but try to figure out what works for you and what not, and it's okay if it doesn't work for you. Just because it works for your friend who looks like you, have the same body type, but there's still a lot of nuances that might not make it work for you. So yeah, it's an iterative approach. It's a lifestyle choice of eating mindfully and eating healthy. All right.
yeah, I have nothing to add. You crushed it, man. Yeah, I agree. This was a fun first pillar episode on nutrition, and our next one will be on body. Yeah, get some muscle in the house, get some body in the house. Really look.
Yeah, next we'll dig deep into the body sector in our next episode as well. It will be something like today, how we cover the fundamentals versus we won't be telling you you have to do this or that. It's a very iterative, holistic approach to health. So until next episode, Travis,
Spiral up, bro. We'll see you then.
spiral up. See you.